I want us to keep on schedule here so that you don't end up being late for the next session. So my name's Rich Elkins, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Working Group for Seamless Parcels, but I am not speaking today. I spoke yesterday, and I'm giving the other people an opportunity. So I would like to, but I'm the moderator. So I'd like to introduce our two speakers for today. They are Elizabeth Daniel. She's a GIS analyst at the Center for Geographic Information and Analysis, and she is the project manager there for Seamless Parcels. So she's the one that keeps everything good and going. And then also our other speaker is Katie Daltrey. She is the president of the North Carolina Property Mappers Association. She's the GIS and addressing administrator for Rutherford County, and she's my co-chair on the committee. And I'm gonna pass this along to them to tell you all about Seamless Parcels.
Good morning. Everybody awake? Have their coffee? At least enough to listen in, huh?
Push that button to advance, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to start out speaking first. I'm going to go over the history and the background of the project, talk about some ongoing challenges, our current participation from other counties, and then Elizabeth is going to talk about NC1 map, the importance of regular updates from the counties, and then I'll come back and talk about some future goals that the working group is thinking about moving forward. The history. In the 1970s, the North Carolina Land Records Management Program assisted in the modernization of land records for all 100 counties. And today, every county has a working parcel data set with corresponding attributes. Well, CGIA created an initiative for the development of a statewide parcel layer. They created the working group for Seamless Parcels to work on this project in 2008. A year later, the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians became a project partner because they had land in several counties across the state. In 2009, the project got a really good push with the use of a US EPA's Exchange Network grant. A subset project team worked for 2 years and finally created a working solution, and with 25 pilot counties across the state, they were able to use an online ETL tool to integrate those counties' parcel layer into a statewide product using the North Carolina Parcels Transformer. How many people here actually do those parcel updates for their agency? Got one in the back, several. So some of you have used the Parcel Transformer using the field mapping to be able to upload and create a statewide layer. Well, a year later, they got full participation and all 100 counties were able to upload, and they had their first ever statewide parcel layer. From 2016 forward, that layer has been available on the NC1 map. It's got full support from several agencies, and I believe it is one of the most downloaded layers on NC1 map today. This is an image of those first 25 pilot counties that worked in the project initially. It's not working? Okay, let's head down here. All right, so here's the 25 pilot counties. They were the ones that were like beta, and Rutherford County was one of them, so we were there from the beginning. Those went online in 2014, and then 2015, all 100 counties came. So this shows the 25 pilot counties, the ones that were published shortly afterwards, and the ones that came online later the same year. Ongoing challenges. Consistency has been an ongoing challenge. There are no required fields at this time. A lot of fields are not being mapped or uploaded, and some of the fields that are have no data populated. We've received several requests for additional information from other agencies, and that's one of the things that the working group is going to start working on moving forward, was try to get some consistency in the fields that are being uploaded. Here is a map of the Seamless Parcels participation map as of right now. It's looking pretty good. I think when they first started, it was only like yearly or twice yearly, semi-annually. That later changed when they saw how popular the layer was. Now they're asking for quarterly updates, so that's only 4 times a year. I know I do the uploads for my county. Once you get your field mapping done, the rest of it runs pretty smoothly. You do have to have the password in order to do that. So Elizabeth can probably help anybody that has any issues with getting that password. And I'm going to turn it over to her to tell you about some of the things that this layer has accomplished with other agencies.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to start off talking about some of the benefits and then move into some of the use cases for the parcels. The Parcel Transformer offers counties a way to automatically back up their data off-site. The translator creates compliant metadata as well every time you upload it to the Parcel Transformer. This ability to back up your data is especially important if you consider that since 2020, several counties have had their data hijacked and ransomed. So, and unfortunately, this type of event is becoming more and more common. So having a way to back up your Polygon data offsite is definitely useful. Parcels are used for emergency preparedness. For example, in a hurricane emergency response, as well as in recovery and mitigation from these hurricanes, parcels provide a ready source of ownership information. They also provide structure information to let emergency responders know if there's a structure on the property. NCDOT often uses parcels as a easily identifiable way to notify landowners about potential transportation projects. Public health analysis parcels are used in, for example, when tracking disease outbreaks such as measles or other infectious diseases. Again, having ownership and address information found in parcels can help them notify people in areas of high risk. The parcel polygons themselves can also provide an initial estimate of kind of the density of property owners within an area that is at risk of transmission. The EPA was one of the first original funding partners for the initial grant program for the Seamless Parcels. The EPA's initial plan was to use parcels for water resource restoration plans. NCDOQ is required to put together restoration plans for all water areas that are not meeting water quality standards. One of the first use cases by DEQ was initiated by the Duke coal ash pond spills. Specifically, DEQ was tasked with finding over 700 to 1,000 wells, all located within a half-mile of a coal ash pond. Since DEQ did not have the exact locations of these wells, they used Parcel Centroids as an estimation of the well locations, and they were found to be fairly accurate. This slide is a depiction of one of their mapping applications that represents the data that went into that project. The yellow and some pink and green circles are actually the Parcel Centroids representing the well locations. The red lines are representing properties that are within a half-mile of coal ash ponds. And then very faintly, you can see the pink parcel outlines that are being pulled in from NC1 map. As part of this settlement project for these spills, properties that were located within a half-mile of coal ash ponds, Duke was required to provide water to these properties, either by supplying water directly from municipal sources or by providing well filtration properties for those. As part of the settlement for these spills, providing these water resources to the property, parcel numbers were used as a way to kind of help track what properties were eligible for the settlement. Parcels are also being used to help ensure equitable access to high-speed internet. For years, North Carolina has relied on FCC data that lets us know areas that are considered underserved. Unfortunately, this information is only available at the census block level. So this means that if one household within a census block is listed as being served, the entire census block is potentially ineligible for funding. This non-granular data has made it very difficult to get grant funding to certain locations. Then in 2022, the FCC released the Broadband Serviceable Fabric, and that's what you're seeing in this image, a snapshot of that. The data set includes residential and businesses within the United States that have fixed broadband access or potential access to be installed with broadband. This single standardized list of locations is a huge improvement over using census blocks, but the grant funding at a location depends on it being in the location fabric. At CGIA, we're developing a process to find locations in North Carolina that are missing in the fabric, and part of this process relies on using parcel data. This slide is a screenshot of some of our initial results. The green dots represent locations that were captured in the FCC fabric, while the red dots represent locations that we think might potentially be missing. These missing locations were found using the improved value as well as parcel tax and land use codes found in the parcel data. Since we do not yet have a recent building footprints layer for all of North Carolina, parcel structural fields may also be useful to help identify these missing locations that potentially could get grant funding. Also, in spring of 2022, the News and Observer did a series of stories looking at the issue of corporations buying up large numbers of single-family homes. Rather than selling these homes, these corporations were renting these properties out. Tyler Dukes was one of the reporters in this Security for Sale series, and he and his colleagues used parcels from NC1 Map to help prepare this story. Where only a small number of national corporations are buying up rental properties in North Carolina, especially in the Charlotte and Triangle areas, they are difficult to track because they use a large number of subsidiary companies. Using tax code records from NC counties, the researchers at the News and Observer were able to compile an authoritative list of a database of parent companies and their most common subsidiaries. This list of subsidiaries was then matched with property owner name and parcel data found from NC1 Map. Properties whose zoning, land use, and building descriptions within the parcels that did not align with the U.S. Census definition of single-family homes were removed from this analysis. This project would have been much more time-consuming and costly without having a statewide data set available showing polygon locations, ownership information, as well as land use values. Some additional user stories. For example, NC Railroad used to have to manage over a parcel layer over 16 counties and compile it themselves. Now they simply have to download that layer from NC1 Map, and most of the counties that they're looking at are updating quarterly. Attribute information such as structure year is being used by Duke University to aid to create lead-free home applications for renters or buyers. Appalachian State also works with a lot of their students to explore absentee ownership information as well as analyzing parcel use code information for projects. So I've touched on just a few of the user stories that Parcels have helped support. I do want to kind of go over some of the ways that you can access it. Most of you are probably familiar. We have map services, feature services. You can also download zip files by county or statewide and web applications. One of the newest features we've added is you can now access historical data. So if you're interested in looking at trends over time, you can use parcel data for that. How can you continue to help the Parcel project improve, especially if you're a data steward? Making sure to check and repair your geometry before you upload it. Try to provide as much complete information as you can from the data that you have into the transformer. I'm also available to help if you're needing to join tax data or add additional information, or if you need to remap your fields. And with that, be in mind too that as you upload your data, if your schema changes, we're potentially going to need to do some remapping there as well. If you're wanting to upload to the transformer, that's one option. You need an NCID, so I can send you information on how to get that if you do not have it. And again, we're asking to provide updates on a quarterly basis. We actually have over 6 counties now that are providing it on a monthly basis, so we're getting updates on a regular basis. And now I'm going to turn it over to Katie.
Future goals. Where do we go from here? I will say that land records is where I started. It's probably where my heart will always be. And as the NCPMA president, I do feel that the parcels and the parcel mapping is the foundation building block for a whole lot of projects that come on top of it. All the projects that Elizabeth has talked about, and a lot of the projects that you've sat and listened to yesterday and today and tomorrow start with a statewide parcel layer. And it's the people that are doing these uploads that start the beginning process of these projects. So to move forward, what do? We've got to get better communication between the working group and the people in the counties that are doing these uploads. We need tracking of the contacts in each county so that we can reach out to them when they are having problems with the upload. The committee members, a lot of the committee members have been on it since probably 2009, and for whatever reason, retirement, they have chose to drop off, so we do have some vacancies. And we want to get people on the committee that's more than just land records. We're looking for GIS, tax assessment, addressing, 911, census, forestry, utilities, and even people with technical skills and connections to county staff and the tax CAMA vendors. They're going to play an important part moving forward to try to get what we're looking for. So if anybody is passionate about what this layer can do and you're think you could be a good fit for the board, please come and talk to either one of us. We'll be glad to talk to you. It dropped some fields. One of the things that we're looking at is determining what fields should be required, what fields are just recommended, and what fields are just optional. We're also looking at creating areas that each committee member could take on and maybe mentor. And if we see that certain counties are dropping off with their uploads, just reaching out to them and saying, what issues are you having? What can I help with? And just kind of guide them to get to those quarterly updates. Because we all know every county is different. We all use different systems. Our departments are set up differently. And you never know what obstacles they're facing that you don't even think about. We're also thinking about a group of GIS and tax professionals that can represent all the different CAMA vendors that we have throughout the state and kind of work with them moving forward. Because a lot of the requests that we're seeing is building information, value information, address information, and for those GIS people out there, you know that when you're looking at those one-to-many relationships where you have multiple buildings, multiple addresses, a lot of this stuff you just can't tie to one parcel layer. So we've got to be creative in thinking about other options. How can we get this valuable information that these agencies really need, and maybe something other than just the parcel layer, whether that be data tables or something that they can do on the back end to get that information they're needing, but not necessarily in the parcel layer itself. And that's going to take a lot of work with the CAMA vendors. But any questions for either one of us about the parcel layers?
Having been up here on a panel, or in the audience, it's really hard to hear when people ask questions in this room. So I'm going to take the microphone around so everybody can actually hear what the questions are, including the people on the stage.
Thank you for this data. We use it a lot at state government. Makes it really convenient having it all in one layer. Can you tell us more about the historical parcel layer, what that looks like how far back it goes?
I believe the layer first went online in 2014.
So you're asking about what historical, how far back, when I mentioned that we now have options, not just the most recent upload, but historical. Is that what you're asking about? Yeah, that's going to vary by county depending on uploads. And honestly, David with NC1 Map, who's the one that processes all the data, is probably going to have a better idea about what resources are out there for that, as far as each county is potentially going to have different historical amount of data. So I'm more than welcome to kind of talk with you offline and maybe bring David into the conversation about that.
Do we know if
Any
it's
other
snapshots
questions?
or
And like I
is it
said,
time
anybody
slotted,
that's even thinking about maybe serving on the working group, please come and talk to us.
Yeah, David says it's basically you can download time snapshots if you need to look at something at a previous date.
It's really going to vary from county to county, but we didn't delete any of the parcel data we've gotten ever since the inception of the project. So from day one, the parcel data is going to be there for whatever county you're looking for.
And just another thing about updating things quarterly. NCID is the way that you access it. Your NCID actually expires every 3 months, so it's a really good thing that if you get your update saying, "Hey, it's time to update your or to change your password," that kind of gives you a clue. It's like, "Hey, it's also time for me to upload." If you're doing quarterly, although doing more often than quarterly is that's really appreciated. Are there any more? Maybe we have time for one more question before we got to let you go.
Would it be possible to upload like very old historical parcel records from like the 50s or 60s?
I don't think that's really, I mean, like 50s or 60s, everything's going to be on paper maps and paper, With that kind of thing, if you're looking for historical stuff going back that far, you're probably going to have to talk to the individual counties. It's going to be compiling all that into a statewide layer without the benefit of GIS data already existing like the counties have. I think that would be a pretty big task to overcome. So, but a lot of counties do have historical data going back that far, but it may be in a book or a report or something, not in a digital form. All right, so that's all the time we have. If you have any questions on it, please feel free to ask either of our panelists or come to me. I'm also on the working group. And thank you.